without control over one's finances or one's financial well-being, as we call it, you can start to suffer in all areas of your life. It can affect relationships. It can affect work. It can affect, as I said, your health, mentally or physically. As most people know, it can progress into anxiety and depression. It really is one of the key elements of health that one needs to look at, the financial element.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who's out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hi, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. My guest today is Oliver Rolfe in his second appearance here on the show. And we're going to be talking about money and financial health. But first, I'd like to invite you to visit my website, theexplodinghuman.com. Over there, you can listen to episodes, read synopses, see photos of my guests, a little bio on myself. There's a donate button if you'd like to support the show through Patreon. Thank you very much. There's also a YouTube channel where you can listen. That is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman, and The Exploding Human Facebook page. As I said, my guest today for his second appearance here is Oliver Rolfe, and he wrote a book on a guide to holistic health, which you can find out about in a previous episode. I think it was 2 episodes ago. And as we talked during that episode, I realized that he had a long history in the financial world, and I realized he had a lot to say about financial health and what that means and how to achieve it. It's not just about accumulating wealth, of course. There's a whole holistic aspect to money and the energy around it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And there's a little history in there, and there's some very practical approaches to handling money and what it actually means and what we get out of it, and the various ways we can approach our life when it comes to our financial health. So here he is. This is Oliver Rolfe. Morning, Oliver, for me, and good evening for you in the UK. I'm glad you're here again.
Good morning, Bob. It's great to be here. I'm glad you invited me back, and you weren't lying. It was I thought it was a joke to start with. I know you're a great comedian, but having me back the first time was a great pleasure. Saying that I could come back is even greater.
Wow, thank you. It's we had a really nice conversation about your book, and we will mention that again as the episode progresses. But one of the things that we discovered in our conversation was that you have been in the financial world for a really long time. And I was saying, geez, how do we integrate this idea of holistic health and living and spirituality with finance? Because they often, as I was saying earlier before we started recording, they seem like almost like 2 separate things, for at least for me and for most people. I think it's like, well, yes, I want to be healthy and spiritual, but I got to go earn a living, and that's a dog eat dog world, and it's almost feels like they fight each other in a lot of ways. And how do we integrate them? And how maybe there's another view of money? Why don't you talk a little bit about what your past, present is with money, and how you've integrated those things?
You can go a lot of different ways. So the quick answer is it's a balance. And I think that's an important factor. I think there's a balance of energy when it comes to money. And there are many blockers on that balance. Now, if you purely focus on financials, for me, I think you're going to end up in one route, which is unlikely to be massively fulfilling. And there will be a point where you'll end up, it is likely that you'll end up having a reset. and feeling that this isn't the path that you should be going down, unless you're fortunate enough to do exactly what you're supposed to be doing in an area that makes a huge amount of money, which in this day and age is not as many as it would be, or possibly has been previously. Now, being, as you said, in the financial industry for over 2 decades, and within that time, the culture of the industry has changed so dramatically. When I first entered into the city, it was still very much of what you'd call an old school. It was going out for drinks. It was being very debaucherous. It was inflated wealth, a lot of drugs and alcohol. It's not something I partaked in because it was a different part of my life, really, compared to where everyone else was. Now, as the decades have progressed and the events have progressed of life, i.e., the crash in 2008 and 9, and then again in 11 and 12, the destructuralization of the market in particular, and the current creation of the market as well. But then in between that, you've had what you'd basically see a complete deglobalization. Now, that added to Brexit in Europe, you could say the situation with Trump that we've had over the last sort of 4 to 6 years, whatever it might be. Not that it was a bad president, not talking about, but just the ending of it. And then you add the war in Russia and Ukraine at the moment, global recession, and COVID. You know, we've gone through lots of changes all at the same time, which have created different facets of financial stress, strain, or is concern. And it seems that it's from a top-down perspective, which is why I think a lot of people have felt a lot more strain over the last decade than we've ever seen before. There's probably less opportunity in some ways, in some areas, or at least in areas that people previously knew. And there are a lot more opportunity in areas that are new and are there for the youth and for future generations. And I think that's where the balance is at the moment. And that comes within life and also within finances. Now, the balance of finance for holistic health is wildly important in this world anyway, especially the Western world. I can't speak about everywhere, but certainly in the Western world. We all have wants and needs. And the important thing to focus on is the needs and not the wants. I imagine house, big car, a lovely view would be, I think, something that a lot of people would want. However, there are a lot of different factors when it comes to achievement and success. Achievement and success doesn't have to mean money. In fact, it shouldn't mean money. I think two should be very separately apart. You can get money from success and achievement, but for me, for example, so I've been in the city for 20 years. I've had my company for coming up to 13. I'm developing and building a separate part, which has been growing over the life and career side of the business. My book comes out this week in Europe, Holistic Guide to Your Health and Wellbeing Today, which I'm so excited about. I'm really delighted to be speaking to you this week because of that as well. I've done a lot of different things, and people would say to me, "Oh, your greatest achievements, building your company, and it's still being here after a decade." But I feel the work that I put into it, the passion potentially as well, and hopefully, and more importantly, and I please God, the connection to others and the ability for the book to help others has given me and is giving me a really unbelievable level of satisfaction and appreciation and achievement. And that's not through a financial element. So I think first and foremost, we need to kind of break down what it means to focus on the financials. I think there's the need, and that's the important part. The other elements are trying to really understand yourself in a way to know what it is that your path is and your soul's path is going to be moving forward. Now, in a different angle, the financial health and well-being, or holistic health and well-being financially. So part of our consultancy group, we have got a financial advisor involved. Now, the reason we've got a financial advisor involved is because it is wildly important in this world to look after your money and to make sure you're not overspending and to make sure you've got enough for the future. and to make sure that you don't have to think about or worry about money, because that a financial burden mentally, and therefore can be emotionally, energetically, and physically. So without control over one's finances or one's financial well-being, as we call it, you can start to suffer in all areas of your life. It can affect relationships, it can affect work, it can affect, as I said, your health, mentally or physically. As most people know, it can progress into anxiety and depression. It really is one of the key elements of health that one needs to look at, the financial element. But that's also assessing it with a very honest view, and to not overextend outside of what you can afford. That I'm not someone who loves having a credit card and having to pay interest and roll over interest and instant interest. I've always tried to live within my means. I think my family keep on telling me, move to a bigger house, you need more space. They're probably right. We do need more space. However, the one thing I don't want in my life is financial strain and stress, because I've had it. And for me in particular, it really hurt me. It put me under a lot of pain, genuinely physical pain, because, I wasn't where I wanted to be at a point in my life. And for me, particularly, I don't want to be in that scenario. So I've understood what I need, which is all about the self. And we talked about that in our previous podcast, really understanding yourself and also being unbelievably realistic. You can't look at financial well-being and financial health without being realistic. And if you think that you can, what do they call it? You could be on beer money drinking champagne. And that doesn't work, because it's only going to end you into a poor situation. And the reason why you feel like you need to possibly be at that level is because the influences around you. And again, that's an important factor of what is financial well-being. It is trying to ignore the social elements around you and focus on what is important to you as an individual.
What you're saying is fantastic, because it's the basis of a way of living that does integrate with other healthy life choices. Financial health is not necessarily extreme wealth. Financial health, to me, is what you just talked about. It's having it in a perspective where you are not a slave to having to do things you don't want to do, or having to pay extra money for something that you created a situation which is unhealthy. And it really, to me, there was I remember reading the, what was it? The Lao Tzu book, the Tao Te Ching or something. It was simple sayings from his teachings, which was, be content with little. And I remember reading that, thinking about, what does that mean? It doesn't say you can't try to get other things beyond little, but if you can be content with the basic needs, not necessarily wants, then everything else then there's a certain amount of freedom that you have to make choices. And it really, people that get into financial trouble, and I'm not talking about bad situations where people lose their income and, or can't get jobs for a variety of reasons, whether it's ill health or, just some bad hops of the ball. Those things happen. But when people make choices in their life that they're not thinking them through of, what am I doing here? And I ask myself a few questions before I purchase something, similar to what you were talking about your house, which is, yeah, it'd be nice to have a bigger house, but what is that going to entail? So I ask myself this when I buy anything of significant cost is, do I really need this? Is this going to make me happier? Do I need it right now? What will happen if I wait? What is my motive for getting this? Is it to, because it's actually going to enhance my life, or am I doing this because, the other people around me are doing this? And that's usually not a factor for me, but it is for a lot of people. There's that hilarious thing is I'm buying things I don't need with money I don't have to impress people I don't know. I guess it really is a spiritual lifestyle choice to how do I and the people I love approach money so that it works. So the idea of finance enhances my life rather than creates a type of what I would call slavery, in a sense, to having to scramble.
Realistically, the more simplistically anyone lives life, in some ways, the more it's enhanced. So if a normal Westerner saw a man on living in a hut, and he's might have a little chair on the top of his roof to look at the stars, and he might have a little barbecue to cook his food, and maybe like an ice box or something. And to someone, I was like, "My God, they're so poor. What a poor individual. He's living in a shack. He's got to cook off a barbecue." But then the other perspective is this person is living on a beach in a beautiful surrounding, warm climate. His entertainment is the sea, the stars every night, the beauty of the world. And honestly, I spend hours looking at the stars. There is so much, when I say entertainment, it's a weird and probably not right word used to use, but there is so much entertainment looking at the stars. And from that person's perspective, looking at, say, a Westerner with their jeans or whatever it is, and their phone, and their, you've got the headphones in, and then looking at their phone the whole time, and they're probably looking at them in a different way, thinking how trapped they are in their life and how imprisoned they are by the technology, by the material goods. And by the way, like I like material goods. I am someone who I would like to have quality in life rather than quantity. Much rather quality. I understand both perspectives, but I think the more simplistic you can live your life, the freer that one becomes. And I think that works the same way with the finances, because again, it comes back to knowing yourself. And as you said quite rightly, is when you buy something, you question why you're buying it, because we all have that urge. That urge comes through, and you're like, I want it, and actually you don't want it, or you don't need it, and as soon as you've got it, you probably don't care about it. However, it's trying to balance that urge, but it's also about understanding yourself of what you actually need, what it is that is going to fulfill you. Because actually, we've probably all got loads of stuff around us that clutters and doesn't help our mind either. The clearer your space, the clearer your mind. And I like to have a bit of a tidy up at times, just to make sure that the right things around me, and if I don't have it around me, or if they don't serve me the purpose, then I don't have around me at all. The way the world is at the moment, there are not loads of jobs which are going to make an extreme amount of money if you work for someone else. And if you work for someone else, you want. This is another person's quote. I can't remember where it came from. But if you work for someone else, you are invariably delivering the dream that they had. And it's not to say it's a bad thing, but you're part of something, but you're part of their dream. And if you have your own dream and can go out there and deliver your own dream, not only will you get more fulfillment because you'll have more opportunity, you'll work when you need to work. You'll work hard. There'll be no question about it. Any money you earn will go to you, but you have to be committed in what you're doing. You have to know the area that you're working in. You have to be committed and passionate, and it has to come from your soul. It has to come from a deep place within you which says, I must do this. This is something I want to do. To love something is great. But I think in life, a lot of people know love is fantastic, but love changes. And like with a lot of relationship, people can really love each other, but then they don't like each other. And when the love fades and they're left with the individual and you don't like each other, you separate and split apart. So the ability to like someone is the important factor. The ability to do something you like and want to do it every day for the rest of your life, is the important factor. The ability to do something you like and want to do it every day for the rest of your life is the important factor. The ability to like someone is the important factor. The ability to do something you like and want to do it every day for the rest of your life is the important factor. The ability to do something you like That's the important factor. It's trying to find that calling and do it for as long as you can possibly do. Because the more you chop, the more you change, which is fine to chop and change because it's about learning every time you chop and change. You're starting a new process, you're starting a new job. But when it comes to finances, it is and becomes difficult the more you chop and change to rise up a financial ladder of success, inverted commas, success, but financial success. If you stay within one area of the world, usually, maybe, a bit of background in a couple of areas prior to that, sure. But one area of the world where you've got passion, you've got a focus, you've got an edge, because realistically, we've got to lean in what we're good at. There's no point doing something that you're not good at. It doesn't make sense. No one needs an average mechanic. So this is the thing in life. If you're good at dance, do you know what? Be a dancer, but be the best bloody dancer you can be. If you're an unbelievable poker player and you're great with numbers, do you know what? If that's what you love and you're excellent at it, lean into it. If you're great at something that you hate, then you've got to have a balance of what works. Maybe you do that because you can get paid really well, hypothetically, but then offset it with what your desires are, your artistic desires, because we've all got an artistic nature within us. This is the thing that lacks. Whether it's and I mean art in a very different way. Counseling is art. So spending time with people and connecting them is an art. Actually painting, writing, theatre, drama, anything that is music, anything that is creative. We are creative beings, and that's the element that we have to balance with the financial element. And when you find a balance of life, I think that's where you've got the key. You've got family, you've got money, you've got relationships, you've got yourself, you've got your health. And if you can get all of those lined up, you're invariably in a wonderful place in this planet. And then you can move forward, progress and progress and progress. But it is absolutely key that you have that foundation. And without that base of foundation, people run too far, they jump too far. And often, the world tells you, take the debt, extend yourself, go the extra mile, have another credit card. Doesn't matter. Think about it later. But the problem is, a lot of people are brought up with mum and dad might look after it for you if you're lucky, but someone else will deal with it. The banks will deal with it. Someone else will take care of it. No. Take responsibility and ensure that you're not in a situation where you're not responsible for what's going on and you're not able to cope with what's happening around you. And that is about being realistic with your finances on a daily basis. And once you know where you are on a realistic basis, you can then progress yourself further forward to say, okay, I'm on $50,000. For me to live in a nicer area, have a nicer apartment, whatever it might be, okay, I need to earn 75,000. How do I get to that point? What can I do to get me there? Can I do it in my current job? Okay. If not, is there a job I can do? Is there something I could do on the side? Can I create my own business? Whatever it might be, there are things you can do to supplement your own income as well. But I would always say, don't do that at the behest of your health and well-being.
That's a good point, because it really is about how you're moving through the world on a daily basis. And if you're churning inside and upset and worried all the time, maybe the thing you're doing is not really working, even if it's making money or not making money. I was thinking about when you were talking about working for somebody else, that does work for certain people. Because there is a certain amount of freedom that you get in not worrying about the thing you're trying to pull off. If you're somebody where you go, I just want to go to a place, earn enough money to live a simple life and enjoy my family at home and not think about work. Yeah. That is a really cool thing done in the right way.
Absolutely.
And then
unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, I've done, I've kind of done both. I've been my own employer in a sense, being, in entertainment in various aspects, and having to, find situations that work and not having security. There's a certain comfort in if there is such a thing as a secure job. than relative to to other things. And so there is something to be said for that, and there's also something to be said for being your own boss. But there's a price for that too. It's sort of risk reward kind of a thing, which is, you're making an investment in yourself, like you would make an investment in a stock that's riskier, but the reward can be better. And so it really is what you were talking about at the beginning, to me, is some kind of a balance, and constantly, not in a neurotic way, but assessing where you are on any given month or quarter, or however you want to measure financial
Constantly.
stuff. And yeah, it really is. It's not just plugging in and you go till the end and you die. You got to actually pay attention. At least when I was a kid, this was not talked about, except if it was talked about in your home by your parents, that was the only information you got. I was just talking to a friend of mine who grew up in a lot of chaos financially, and he's just learning it now. He's 35, and he's just starting to read books about it and talk about these things. He was telling me the other day he got a great deal on some fancy watch. Now, I don't care about watches. I don't wear one, and doesn't interest me. He loved watches. I don't know why. He bought a watch. It's worth somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 and he got a deal on it, whatever, but he goes, I'm going to sell this watch to get out of debt. It's part of what I'm going to do. He goes, I don't need it. I don't want to get robbed. I think about it in a way that I worry about, things happening to the watch or myself. When somebody trying to take it from me, it doesn't really make me happy like it did the week I bought it. And I'm going to get rid of it. I was like, and I remember when he bought it, I thought, this is a fucking stupid purchase.
But then, like he didn't assess it. He didn't think about it. Maybe his circumstances changed at the same time. Do you know, actually, one of the interesting points you mentioned about working for someone or working for yourself, and I completely agree with everything you've said. It also depends on the job you do. So bearing in mind, I worked in a sales job. It wasn't, obviously, executive search is unfortunately not in my company, but elsewhere, is based on financials. So unless you hit a number, unless you hit a target, your job is under threat. So my version of one of my realities of why I left, at least in my own mind, was the fact that, well, look, if I don't perform for the company I'm working at, then I get fired. If I don't perform for myself, I don't have food. However, if I earn for someone else, I give away about 60, let's call it 5-6% away. If I earn myself, I keep basically 100% minus tax. So you go, well, I have to do 66% less to earn the same money for myself as I would do working for someone else. So I thought that seems like a decent risk to look at. Sure. And that's why I went forward. Mm-hmm. And really, there are jobs which will be very much a sales element, but you need a product. And if you don't have a product, what are you selling? So I categorically agree. There are definitely jobs out there where you need a company, you need the infrastructure, the network, and actually, when you've got that, you're part of something so much bigger. The problem with that, from someone like my perspective, is it's quite hard to implement change in something that is so big, so vast, and probably has been built over decades and decades and decades, and probably centuries, really. And again, as you said before, it's all about the personality, the individual, the connection too. But it is, the last thing anyone wants to be in is in financial strain because they've bought a thing that they just didn't need. And the reason why I brought it up before, I remember when I was younger, like 20 years ago maybe, I was living in an apartment, which was great, and I bought this car. It wasn't an expensive car particularly, and I bought it at a really, really good deal. And about, I can't remember, about 14 months later, call it 18 months later, the market crashed. There was a recession, and I just went, Oh no. Oh no. I don't. If I lose my job, then I am in so much trouble. And this just went through my mind constantly. I was like, I don't have a safety net. I don't have a safety net. You know, and this is why I have now safety nets in as many places as possible, just to make myself feel comfortable, because that's what health, financial well-being is about. Individual financial well-being is making sure you feel comfortable, that you're not having that nagging feeling. So it was awful, and I remember my wife at the time, who was my girlfriend. I just remember just bursting out in tears. I was just so stressed with it. I just got to a point where I'd worked myself up, and I just went, "Oh, I don't know what I want to do with this," and blah blah blah. And I just let it all out. And then obviously you kind of go through that moment. About 30 seconds later, you're like, "Well, I'll sell the car," and I ended up making a profit on it. And you go, "Well, it's a great lesson to learn. I've made some money. I'm not doing that again." But you have to learn that lesson, because when you're in that situation, it just feels awful. And it's not even the fact that anything bad is happening. It's just the fact that you think it's happening. And that's a lot of the problem. And when you've actually got a situation where something's happening, and you've got not enough food, being potentially threatened of being evicted, but the stress, anxiety, worry, and damage to the body that will cause, it was absolutely untold. And it can scar people. And I know in particular, I've got friends who've been in a situation, literally it will scar them forever. And by being as mindful as possible, and not being caught up with this bombardment of social media advertising that you just get for you, which is excellent, by the way. Because even I'm on things which I don't normally use. Like, for example, on Facebook to say happy birthday to someone, an advert will pop up, and even I'll go, "Oh, that's good." And you're like, I don't even want this, but you know what? They're very good at what they're doing. But when you're young and susceptible in particular, it can be really dangerous. And if we're not educating our children to be aware that this is targeted marketing, which they just don't understand, then it can lead for maybe even the rest of their life.
You know, the job of marketing, and it's a constant barrage that if you're not aware of it, you can be influenced. And even if you are aware of it, you can be influenced. But it's to convince you that you must have something you don't actually need. It's such a funny idea. Oh, I got to get one of those. Well, you didn't have one yesterday. How were you? I was fine. Well, then why do you need it today?
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah, but it might help. It might save me like a minutes.
I got to get one of those. You know, but sometimes, you know, you do find out about something, a new product or service that does enhance your life, but take a minute to figure out, does it really? And it's so funny how that in the United States, to me, does it better than anybody. Is at the advertising onslaught of it constant. You know, I mean, you just click on a friend of mine is looking for a new car, and he looked at one thing, and now he's getting, oh gosh, you know, all day long he goes, I'm getting ads for cars and leases, and you know, he goes, I don't even feel comfortable looking for anything out of curiosity, because I'm going to get attacked.
What I do, which is probably shouldn't say it maybe out loud, but the incognito or privacy windows are the way to go, so that doesn't happen. So it just blocks all your cookies. So if you are looking at something, it's like, you know, if you look at an airline flight, if you look at an airline flight constantly, or a hotel flight constantly, it picks up how many people are looking at the hotel, and invariably, if loads of people are looking at the hotel, the price might start to creep. So even on that basis, it's good just to have the privacy window. But you mentioned something before, actually, and it's, you know, the holistic guide to health and well-being today, and it's not a sales pitch. It's partly what we discussed before. And my style of writing is always there to be of guidance, and to almost not be an A to Z book. You don't have to pick it up and read it A to Z at any point, either of my books, or even that didn't come out, to be fair. It's always about having the continuity to look at it forever. The information is not going to change. It's categorically, it is what it is. Everything in there is factual and scientifically backed. So the information is not going to change, which basically means you're buying something forever. And I don't know many books or anything of that ilk which has got the mentality of long term. We're in a world now where, and this relates to finance as well, heavily actually, we're in a world now that's driven towards the short term. I appreciate that we were talking about living in the now, living in the moment, but everything's done for the short term. And the specific reasons why I set up Spartan International was to make sure that everything we did was for the long term. So if you're doing everything for the long term, you're doing everything with quality. Or at least, let's put it this way, you're trying to do everything with quality. Because the idea of being there for the long term is building long-term relationships. It's building the connection. It's listening to people. It's being there for them, always. It's not shirking responsibility. If you're asked to do something, you get it done. If you say you're going to do something, you get it done. And I feel that in a world that creates things to last for 5 minutes more often than not, it's difficult to continue that mentality. And I'll give you a very good example. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, millennia ago, everything that was built for centuries. It wasn't built for 10 minutes. Some of the buildings across the States, across Europe that are going up now, they'll be lucky if they're there in 50 years. But then I can see the Sistine Chapel, for example, Gaudi's Cathedral in Barcelona. So this has already been here for 400 or 500 years already. St. Paul's Cathedral, hundreds of years old. These buildings took such a long time to build. They are absolutely ginormous, but they will stand the test of time of our humanity. And yet we're building things which are, I don't know, made out of cardboard. It seems like we're going down a very cheap route, and maybe that's where we are in our lifetime. It's not there's not one element of collective power or money, which I think realistically back in the pre-modern times, it probably would be. So the pharaohs in Egypt, they would have had most of the money centralized to themselves, so therefore they would be able to enslave people to build, whether it's the Sphinx or the pyramids, and that's kind of continued forward everywhere else. But we're just in a world that is building to sell. We're building this stuff just to sell, make, and that goes back to what you said before about, do you need the stuff that's around you? I like technology, but I don't buy every technology. I haven't changed my phone for years. I could do with one now because it's about 5 or 6 years old. But I remember there was a time where every new phone came out, go, yep, I need that one. Got to have it. Yep, I need that one. Got to have it. No, you don't. Just wait. Buy the one that you want the first time, and then you're fine. And there is that cycle problem. And this is where companies are really good. Whether it's, I can't say, I don't want to start bringing companies into this, but let's just say Japanese and American electronics companies basically have cycles of products between every 12 months and 18 months, 2 years at the maximum, where you go, oh, they've just upgraded it.
Yeah.
More memory.
Mm-hmm.
It's faster. Yeah. The screen's better. And you go, well, actually, none of that matters in the real life. Your same phone works, or whatever item it is, your headphones work as good as they ever did before. Nothing's changed in your life. You don't need it. It's there if you want it, but you don't need it. Wait till it breaks. Wait till it dies. Wait till it's on the floor and you've utilized it to get the maximum value that you've actually spent in this one before you start reinvesting in another one. Unless you're really clever and you start to then buy stuff, make sure it's super clean every time you utilize it. When the new one comes out, you sell that one before it comes out, and then have a immediate phone and then start doing other stuff. But who can be bothered with the hassle of that?
I have one friend that does that with cars. He has bought cars and sold them back to the dealership for more than he paid for them. But he studies it he spends hours a week studying that particular market of new cars and all the different dealerships, and he's cultivated relationships. It's like a hobby slash, side business. I don't have that kind of time. I don't have that kind of interest in doing that. But yes, you can do that. You can do that. But I think using something and realizing you don't really need to upgrade it just because there is an option. I mean, when you think about it, these electronics companies, for example, do have products ready to go for a year, 2 years from now, sitting ready to go. They just haven't released stuff yet. There's technology that's already there that it's being held back, deliberately for a certain period of time. There's a really great saying, all suffering begins with wanting. And that's sort of true. I mean, you kind of go, I want that and I can't have it, or I'm not going to be able to get it yet. Oh, I'm really churning because, this other person got it. And, are they happier than you? I don't know.
You ever seen the cartoon? I think it's like there's someone riding a bike and they look over and someone's driving a Mini, and they look over and someone's driving a Porsche, and they look over and someone's driving a Lamborghini. And the guy's driving a Lamborghini, everyone's looking at him going, oh my God. And then there's someone flying in a helicopter. And he goes, oh, I want that. So it comes back to being happy with what you've got. Because if you look at other people in a financial sense, you will always, for the rest of your life, want more. And you will never, ever be content with anything. And that is the most important point. Until you're content and happy within yourself, and more content than happy, because happy is a state of mind rather than an actual being, so to speak. But contentness is that point where you can go, I'm at peace with myself. You might have a Rolex that's bigger than mine. You might not have a Rolex at all. But do you know what I mean? It's that point where you can go, I'm okay with me. In fact, I'm happy with myself. I don't need to impress someone. I don't need the other stuff. Would I like it? Sure. As I've always said, when it comes to finances, I want more money than anyone's ever wanted money. I want so much of abundance that I'll take it and I want it. And I'm here with open arms. I also appreciate that my view of my abundance is one for my family to have a life which I don't have to worry about them and they don't have to worry. Again, it comes down to that financial well-being. I want them to have financial freedom, and then it comes down to what that abundance will mean, not just for myself but for other people. And I think that's the important thing for me. It's having the ability to go, right, I've now got X, and X means I can really lean into the company. I can continue with my charitable work. So, for example, my first book, The Survivor's Guide to Your Career Today, as of about I think it was about 2 months ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, we started a charitable campaign to offer every school and say sixth form college or plus 16 college in the UK a free book of The Survivor's Guide to Your Career Today to go in your library, just to help all the children with just the ability to have some guidance with their career, with some lifestyle, with some well-being. And I'm glad to say that there's been a decent take up, and it's something that we'll want to continue as well. So those things are important, and that's what I mean by, it costs every time that, like, first it cost me to write the book, it cost me to print the book, and it cost me to send the book out. No one thinks about this when they go, yes, I would like a free copy, please. But it's one of those things. However, I wouldn't be able to do that without some backing with my company and some element of financial in there. And that's what is so important for me with the growth and development. I want to continue this. You mentioned before that I've been in the city for 20 years. On last week, I was presenting to a very large investment bank about health and well-being and health well-being of their employees, because as in mental health is, in 2017 there was a global health disease study, which at that point said there was 792 million people suffering from a mental health disorder, with anxiety and depression being the top two, which covered, if memory serves, roughly about 540 million to 550 million people. Now, if you add on top of that, the substance abuse disorder from drugs and alcohol, that adds another 178 million people, bring it to about 970 million, just under 1 billion people. Remember, this study was done in 2017. There are almost 8 billion people in the world. We're talking about 12% of the planet at that point was suffering from either a mental health disorder or a substance abuse disorder. 2017. That figure today, 1.3 billion people out of 8 billion people. That's probably over 15% of the planet. That is absolutely insane.
Sure.
And on that basis, why are we not doing more about it? The WHO came out with 2 other health organizations in 2020, highlighting the fact that they know that mental health is one of the most undervalued, under-researched, underpaid areas of health. Categorically, someone dies every 40 seconds by suicide. 3 million people die every year by alcohol. The reason I know this is because this is in my presentation. These are the things that I find important, and these are the things that we need to help on. It's all very well looking at one element, but if the people at the top can't help other people, then what is the point of them being there?
And those are just the statistics for the extreme. And I think that's one of the great things about your book is that that's really what it allows. It's not just informational. It makes it so you feel safe to go, oh, I'm experiencing this, or I have experienced that, and it's okay. And I think that, the basis of all the work that you do is that. And, I'm just basically kissing your ass and saying thank you at the same time.
I can only thank you, because that's exactly it. And it's, do you know what, for me, and I really mean this, it kind of makes me emotional, because I didn't know how people would connect to it. I didn't even think about people connecting to it. You kind of just go into it. So I've been unbelievably fortunate. I've had some amazing reviews. And when you say that, and I don't mean this flippantly, it really touches me. It means so much to me, because it means that I've done what I needed to do in many respects. And the fact that you can feel that there's a connection and understanding to it, honestly, it's absolutely amazing for me. That gives me such a great level of genuine joy, satisfaction, and real passion. And this is why the more I talk about this, I can't tell you how much I love talking about health and well-being and helping people and progressing and developing, because I don't know, I don't understand why we're not focusing on this. I don't understand why it's not at the forefront of everyone. And going back to what you said, if you include people that are stressed or finding it difficult, I think you're going to be heading about 6 billion people in the world, probably at that level. And that's the truth. And I think the other side of what we've said is the truth. What I didn't realize, and someone else highlighted this to me before, because they kind of just went, you just speak the truth the whole time. And I do. I don't hold back. I have no filter to hold back at all. I'm very open. I speak my truth. I am what I am. What I didn't realize is that everyone else didn't do that. The only way for you to be yourself, realistically, is by being truthful. But more importantly, the only way that anyone else is ever going to know you is by you being truthful. If you aren't going out there and saying, this is what I want to achieve, this is what I'm asking for, whether it's to your boss, to your partner, to your friends, to whomever else may be, one, they'll never know who you are if you don't speak honestly and you don't in a way that connects to someone else. And two, they'll never understand your wants and needs. So if they don't understand your wants and needs, how can they either help you get there, or how can they give them to you? And this goes very much in terms of an employment basis. A lot of people will sit in their job and feel wildly undervalued and will take everything personally. We'll say, well, with this one motive for me, and this one's getting more paid or better paid, but they won't ever have a conversation. If anything, they'll quit, they'll argue, or they'll shout. None of that helps. Or there'll be some kind of passive aggressive behavior. However, if they just went up to their boss and said, look, I just want to understand, Bob got promoted in front of me. Don't get me wrong, great guy, does a great job. How can I get there? Did I not meet your requirements to get what Bob did? Am I not doing the same thing as Bob? And they'll go, well, actually, yes, you were. I didn't realize you wanted to get promoted. Or it could be, well, actually, do you know what? We've noticed you're doing quite a good job. However, Bob's got 2 more years experience than you. He's been with the company for another 18 months. And actually, he's just a bit further along. However, we have noticed you're doing really well. If you're committed and you'd like to stay at the firm, why don't we work on a way for you to achieve the same metrics as Bob? Now, I cannot tell you how many times that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Right.
But it is so important to be confident in your desire. Don't be unrealistic. If you're earning $20,000 and you're going in there asking for, I don't know, $100,000 and you've done nothing for it just because you want it. Now, come on, let's be realistic. It's not happening.
Yeah.
But if in an area you're part of the team, you're engaged, you want to continue onwards, then actually by being open and honest, by communicating in a way that's positive, that's the best thing about the finances side. It's constantly being positive about everything you're looking at. There are ways to look at things negatively. There are ways to look at things positively. But realistically, you've got to be realistic with yourself. And if you're not, you've automatically got a problem, because you will know if you deserve a raise. You will know if you're going over and above. You will know if you are in a category to be considered as a top performer or whatever else it might be. And if you're not, start to make people aware of exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it to help the firm and the team, but do it in a way that's not bragging. Be open, have a nice conversation, and take things slowly. Don't put too much pressure on people. They don't like that.
One of the things I wish I would have learned is that when you do hear no about anything, that it's not personal, and that you're going to hear no in life more than you're going to hear yes. It's just the way, there's just the percentages. You're going to hear it a lot more. I always took it real personal, and I would get mad. If not overtly, it would be silently. I'm being slighted. These people are morons. My boss should be working for me. I think everyone feels that.
If you're in that situation and you had said to them that, look, why am I in this situation? It's turned around to you and said, Bob, do you know what? This is the reason why we're not paying you up. The comp's doing X, we can only pay Y. If we put you up, we have to let John go. And if we let John go, he's got a family. Yeah. So, and the thing is, it's the communication. We just don't know. When we're an employee, you have no idea the stresses, the strains that your bosses are under. You have no idea the cost of the business. You have no idea the revenues of the business.
Sure.
And you're sitting there like a sitting duck, because anything could happen at any point and you literally wouldn't know.
Well, I want to thank you again for being on the show for the second time, and check out the first episode that Oliver was on. And let's just plug your website so people can find your books and contact you if they need to, or if they want to. Either
exactly,
one.
If they want to. If they need to, fantastic. I'm here. If you want to, even better. It's no, Bob, honestly, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. I love our conversations. We've definitely got a connection. You're a lovely person, and it's always a pleasure being on here. And let's do it again, please, in 2023 with a new conversation. And something
we will.
There's
so much for us to talk about, because we're really in sync, and so maybe synchronicity will be the topic. How's that for a segue? But let's plug your contact information.
Thank you very much. Well, guys, again, my name's Oliver Rolfe, CEO of Spartan International Group. You can contact on www.spartan-int.com. That is the website. You can contact me on info@spartan-exec.com. My book, The Holistic Guide to Your Health and Wellbeing Today, is out in Europe this Friday, and in the US and globally on the 1st of December. You can get it on an ebook on the 25th of November as well. I know it's Thanksgiving. I want to wish everyone out there, if it's before Thanksgiving, are you very happy for Thanksgiving? If it's after Thanksgiving, I hope you've had a wonderful Thanksgiving when you're listening to this. Do remember, great stocking filler. And also, if you do want to say thank you and you can't find that gift to give to someone that you've always struggled with, the holistic guide to your health and well-being today. Have a look at it now. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Oliver. Have a fantastic day. I really appreciate your time and your fantastic input. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Much appreciation for you folks listening into The Exploding Human. Check out the website, theexplodinghuman.com, the YouTube channel, The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman, and The Exploding Human Facebook page. Again, Oliver Rolfe, episode number 2 for him on The Exploding Human. Thank you so much for coming on. Check him out on the internet. You can find out about his books and all the different things that he is doing. And have a wonderful day. Thank you.